once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. I'm Raymond Arroyo. I'm sitting with Father Tad Paholczyk of the National Catholic Bioethics Center. This week in Washington, D.C., the National Prayer Breakfast was held. This is a bit of Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Yet, across the world, we see organized religion standing in the way of faith, perverting love, undermining that message. Sometimes it's easier to see that far away than here at home. But religion, cloaked in naked power lust, is used to justify horrific violence. Attacks on homes, markets, schools, volleyball games, churches, mosques, synagogues, temples.
Father, what do you make of those comments? I mean, to target organized religion, it seems to me this is a real imprecise use of language and troubling.
I couldn't agree more. I think that speaking about organized religion in such a strongly negative way does a disservice to a huge swath of the American population. All of us benefit in so many ways from what organized religion is about, and to suggest that somehow it is an attack against real faith it's a contradiction in terms, and seems to indicate a lack of understanding of what we mean by organized religion.
On the day of the prayer breakfast, and we have to remember, this was a prayer breakfast. This wasn't just something said, aside. And to go at organized religion this way, it seems that in this setting, is really irresponsible. Now, some people have written me and said, I think she was talking about militant jihad or, Islam. Well, no, when you say organized religion, that's a disorganized religion and a perversion of the Quran. What we're discussing here, an organized religion, is Methodists, Episcopalians, Roman Catholics. It seems anyone that gets in the way of the political agenda is what we're talking about.
Well, unfortunately, that does seem like to be the approach here, and I think that once one really unpacks what organized religion involves, when you look at truly the dogmas and teachings, these are things that set a person free to love, free to give of themselves in a way that will, in the end, serve many of the kinds of political ends that they're trying to identify as valuable.
I was rather struck. In 1994, I was in that same room at the Hilton when Mother Teresa spoke at this National Prayer Breakfast. And it was one of those seismic moments. I was stunned that Hillary Clinton brought up the fact that not only was she there, but what Mother Teresa said. Listen to this.
In February of 1994, the speaker here was Mother Teresa. She gave, as everyone who remembers that occasion will certainly recall, a strong address against abortion. And then she asked to see me. And I thought, oh dear.
Again, I remember that moment, and let me tell you, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Al Gore and Tipper Gore sat like stone figures. They didn't move when she was speaking. The room roared to applaud her and to support what Mother Teresa was saying. They were absolutely still behind her. So it was quite a moment. But to bring it up here and kind of wrap herself in the memory of Mother Teresa, I thought was a rather peculiar thing for her to do.
I think it's peculiar, too. Abortion is, in a sense, the elephant that's in the middle of the room, and this administration, I think, is struggling a great deal with it. This is an issue of great importance to so many Americans, and so Hillary is attempting to massage this, to take advantage of this in some kind of a political way.
The president, continuing his remarks that he made at Notre Dame last year, when he finally spoke, echoed that theme of common ground and finding common ground on these issues, and that's the role of faith. Your thoughts on this?
Well, finding common ground and finding unity certainly is valuable, but you have to have a true basis for unity. And I think part of the problem is that the president focuses on things like, he says, children without food, men without shelter, that should be the basis of our unity, rather than at a prayer breakfast emphasizing some deeper source of union. For example, the Lord Jesus Christ. He didn't mention Christ.
Well, that name never came
up during the prayer breakfast. And, if the Lord himself can't be our source of unity, if only social works I mean, that runs in direct tension to everything, for example, that Mother Teresa stood for. She said she wasn't just a social worker, but she was somebody who was serving the Lord Jesus himself.
In the distressing disguise of the poor.
In the distressing disguise of the poor.
Interesting perspective. And the president, who I think, you know, I do think he wants to help people, and his notion is of a social justice detached from any further responsibilities or calling of faith. That becomes, it's kind of a liberation idea, liberation theology idea, that if one reaches out to the poor and helps them in their need, well, that is what we're called to, alone.
Yes, and very much this is a we can do it mentality. In other words, God is somewhat of an incidental here. If we just make the right programs, if we establish the right government initiatives, we can bring a kind of paradise.
Yeah.
And I think we have to resist that temptation. Ultimately, you know, the importance of turning to the Lord is going to be central for any real change within the depths of a society.
I want you to listen to this. This is the president speaking at the prayer breakfast.
Empowered by faith, consistently, prayerfully, we need to find our way back to civility. That begins with stepping out of our comfort zones in an effort to bridge divisions. We see that in many conservative pastors who are helping lead the way to fix our broken immigration system. It's not what would be expected from them, and yet they recognize in those immigrant families the face of God. We see that in the evangelical leaders who are rallying their congregations to protect our planet. We see it in the increasing recognition among progressives that government can't solve all of our problems. And they're talking about values like responsible fatherhood and healthy marriage are integral to any anti-poverty agenda. Stretching out of our dogmas, our prescribed roles along the political spectrum, that can help us regain a sense of civility.
Stretching out of dogmas. This is concerning. You notice there, he didn't echo what he said last year, that the taking of an innocent human life is always wrong, which people kind of shook their heads about. But it sort of misses, as you said a moment ago, the 800-pound gorilla sitting in the middle of the room, abortion.
Yeah, I think the issue of civility certainly is very important, but we have to be honest here that there are certain things that are going to cut against the grain of civility. Go back in our history a little bit to the situation of slavery. There you had a reality that could not just be ignored in the name of civility. It ultimately required a civil war to resolve it.
It was an evil.
It was an evil that was present in our midst that had to be addressed. And, to suggest that we can be civil when it is the policy of this administration to promote violence through abortion is a significant problem and concern. It's not a real civility, then, that's at the heart of this, where there is a targeted population that is, under attack.
Do you think people think deeply enough about these things?
I
think
don't.
Americans, when they hear common ground, you can find common ground on abortion, but no one would ever say you can find common ground on slavery. I mean, a person would be run out on a rail, and they should be.
Precisely. In other words, we need to take reason seriously here. And I think that people just aren't up to that. They are, in a sense, caught in the cliches very often. And as you say, there are certain things that are going to require a decision one way or the other because they involve the very question of life itself. We can't step into that arena without committing to one position or the other.
Very good. Father Tad Paholchik, thank you for being here.
Really a
Father
pleasure.
Tad's work can be found at the National Catholic Bioethics Center site. They are at ncbcenter.org. When we return, we'll remember the late Ralph McInerney. The World Over Live continues in a moment. Stay with us.